All right. Welcome back to another episode.
Oh.
We had thoughts for this episode and then life happened.
Yes, it did. What were we going to talk about today?
We had two different episodes that we wanted to do this month. One of them was for Galentine's, which now is like picking up steam, and everywhere I'm just like, oh, we're doing a Galentine's Day thing. We're doing this and that. So part of me was like, Sacre bleu, why did we not do an episode? But
we can still do something on the socials.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, we'll see. It's by the time this episode drops, like that will have passed. But so like there is that, and then we were going to talk about sexy time. We're going to talk about sex for the month of February because people get all bong chicken bow wow.
That would definitely be rated explicit. But I also have a lot of colleagues that follow or listen to the show, so I'd be really apprehensive about talking about like dicks and shit.
Well, I mean, I agree. Yeah, like we have a lot of people in our professional spheres who follow the pod, but it was more of like, well, how does it fit into having an empowering life? And I do think that there is something that we can explore later on about having a healthy relationship with sex, whatever that means, and maybe we bring on a sexy time expert. I don't know, but that's like what we thought we were gonna do. And
then life was like, no, the fuck you ain't.
Yeah, life was like, that's so cute. You thought you were going to have this. You
two planned something. That's cute.
You planned like 6 months of episodes. And yeah.
So what happened with you? What came up for you?
I had a case that was like it had basically started taking over my life in October. But I was also avoiding lots of things. And so it was like, okay, it was getting more and more steam. But then it was supposed to go to trial March 8th up in Reno. And right before trial, like all of these motions, I think we ended with something like 12 pending motions with the court and just insane amount of time and energy that was going into this case. And it was sucking up my whole life. So it was like, I can't think of anything else. And then I went up to Reno, thankfully settled the case, and so now I'm like, oh, I got my life back. But like what happened in the meantime, I don't know.
Well, and so we even planned for that because originally you had talked about going to trial in March, and so we're like, okay, well, I have a consulting gig that's going on mid-February, let's plan ahead. And life was like, yeah, no, none of that's happening at all.
Yeah, it was like, no, you're not doing any of that stuff. And then I'm taking a pause on our trainer, so then I feel like I don't see you. And our cafecito's impacted. I mean, right now, like things are just, we're in a patch. We're in a rough patch.
So I think it's a great time to just kind of explore, like, when life throws you. I wouldn't even say a curveball. How would you say it?
I mean, I was going to say lemons from your lemon tree, but
no, but those are delicious.
Those are delicious. No, it's just more of, even the best laid plans can, I don't want to say quickly go awry because that wasn't it either. It's just things start moving and you got to move. You got to be flexible or realize, hey, this is a season. And that's really the mindset that I went into with this case was, this is the season right now. This is one of the last things that I'm going to be doing. And, I get to work on this case. And if I get to go to trial, that's great. But in the meantime, hey, this is the season of sacrifice where it's like, okay, well, my time, my energy, my weekends. And it was like, okay, well, I'm glad that resolved because now I've got a little bit more space and I can get back to, the rest of my caseload that has been neglected. Not neglected because that's malpractice. That has not been as thoroughly worked up. Because the other thing too is that I'm a company of one, and you are
basically a company of one.
Basically a company of one. I wasn't going to call her out on that, but yeah, I mean, you have a lot of responsibilities in your company.
I do, and I think. As I was looking at this, so just to kind of give you a shorter version of what happened with me, back in December, I put in a proposal to work with this school. And, with winter break, like I didn't hear anything. And then all of a sudden, like I hear back from them and they're like, yes, let's move forward. Took a minute for us to get a formal agreement, but they were also making changes. So initially I was going to be delivering this workshop in person, which I love because I haven't done that in a minute since the pandemic. But then we wanted to make some changes to it. And so part of it was going to be delivered virtually, which I had never done before. So I had to quickly figure out within like 3 weeks how I was going to convert this workshop online. And, which is fine. But I also was nervous because I'd never done it online. And I remember you and I were talking about it. And it wasn't so much like I was worried about the content itself. It was more of like delivering it in this new medium. And so, again, it wasn't planned. It just kind of happened. And I'm really proud of myself because normally if you've listened to the episodes, I don't like change. I don't like change at all. And so, but here I was embracing this because I kept telling myself, okay, here's I've tried to put it into a learning opportunity. Here is a chance for me to learn a new modality to teach. And there are things that I want to do with my career. I want to make it more diverse. I want to find ways to make it more inclusive. And I said, this is a way for me to reach more people. And so I've been really proud of myself at how well I've handled it. I mean, granted, I've had some sleepless nights, but overall, I think I've been doing pretty well.
That's good.
Yes.
That's good. I love the reframe because I think both of us had reframes, right? Like mine was, hey, this is just the season right now. I get to do these things and these will be the last times that I get to do these things because I am transitioning out of the law. Peace out, bitches. But then you are also like, hey, here's an opportunity for me to learn this new modality so that I can reach new people, and just how those reframes seem to help us both get to, the word survival is coming up, but really it's get to
transition, adjust, grow. I mean, we've talked about growth mindset on the podcast before, and growth mindset really requires taking risk. It requires, teaching something in a different modality and doing things that are outside of your comfort zone. And so I'm really proud of us, but it was not easy.
No. And I mean, we're recording this episode before you go deliver the final part of this project, which will be exciting. So by the time this airs, you're gonna be like, I was so worried. What was I so worried about? That's amazing.
No, in person's fine. I'm very fortunate though. I've learned that I will never deliver anything online without a tech host. So if you ever are thinking of delivering something online, tech host is where it's at. I mean, she literally took care of everything so I could just focus on the content, which was nice. But my God, it's been a lot of work. I was the lead consultant on this project, which was another first for me. And so I, suffered from imposter syndrome a little bit, and, add to the fact that I was going to be delivering some of this online. I was terrified. But you know what? It turned out really, really well.
That's good. I'm glad.
And I'm proud of myself.
Did your body respond to you in this time of, are you feeling better, I guess is the question?
Well, I feel better now that I don't have to present because I get anxious anytime I present. I always joke though that because I am an anxious person, that if I didn't feel anxiety, like I'd feel nothing at all. So
if I didn't feel anxiety, I'd feel nothing at all. That's the quote for this episode.
It's true. But, I even noticed yesterday, knowing that this next week I'm going to be delivering in person, I'm fine. But yesterday my body, I don't know, it was depleted. I couldn't focus on anything if I had wanted to. And I think I shared with you off air that I just listened to an audiobook and sat out in the sun, which I've been sequestered in my office, teaching or creating agendas or worksheets for the past 3 weeks. I think I've had 2 days off in the past three weeks. And so yesterday I had plans to work on some podcast stuff, and I was like, I physically can't.
Mm-hmm. And that's good. Not that you got to that point where you can't, but that you recognized, hey, I can't do this. I'm going to do something that's a little bit more energizing for me. And that's sitting out, probably listening to a crime, true story type.
There was a murder audiobook.
Audiobook. Yeah, there you go.
But you do talk about sacrifice, and it did feel a little bit like that. It was mostly, I was kind of upset with myself. So, my intention for this year was me, putting me first, making sure my needs were taken care of, my mental health. And here I was working 50, 60 hours a week for this client, and I neglected myself. So I did realize I was mad. And I remember you saying that oftentimes when we're mad, it's because we're crossing a boundary that we've set. And I did. And so it's like, okay, I'm proud of myself, but I'm also angry with myself. So it's just this weird
Yeah, well,
place.
because I mean, I think the bottom line with any of this is that we made choices, right? You made a choice to take on this client, and then as you were doing that, you chose to work all those hours. What we don't do is tell ourselves it's a choice. We go, we have no choice. I have to do this. I have to put in all this time for the client. It's like, actually, you don't. You don't have to do any of that stuff. I didn't have to write those motions. I didn't have to do those things. I chose to do them, but the way we think about it, we eliminate the choice aspect of it, and that's where it gets really that much harder.
That is exactly, I'm like, I need to do this. I need to create the agenda. I need to do all these things for the clients. Absolutely. It's not a choice. It's not a choice. And it's been really hard because I'm working with a team. One is completely new, so I'm helping mentor her. And the other one is a seasoned vet, but doesn't do a lot of stuff. But so I really had to take on a lot, but you'd be proud of me, I did delegate some things to the new person because I want her to get experience. It was hard because it wasn't how I would do things, but I have to just tell myself it's done and, I don't have to do it. But I mean, it's just been a whole learning experience, but I totally resonate with what you said. I kept telling myself, I need to do this. I'm sorry, honey, like I need to, continue to work these long hours for the client. I need to do this, but I don't. It's absolutely a choice.
It is, but in the moment you didn't allow yourself to see that it was a choice, and that's why it was harder. Which is part of what we do in coaching. It's like, no, you can look at these things, especially when we're feeling overwhelmed or we're feeling like mad and angry, all these things, and it's oftentimes because we feel like we had no choice in doing something. And no, we did. We just didn't want to recognize the choice. Once you bring that awareness to it, you're like, oh, yeah, no, I was choosing to do that. Because then when you bring it to the conscious level and you actually are looking at, no, I'm choosing to work past 7 today. I'm choosing to eat up my weekends because I had an avoider that was not letting me do what I needed to do. But again, it all goes back to choice. Like I chose my avoider over my other person, and then like the little thing pops into my head. It's like, oh no, you do really good on deadlines. Like you need a deadline and you need to be right up against it. It's like, no, that's a choice. That's a habit. I have a habit of procrastination that I'm working on. It's not a good thing.
It's not ADHD at all. So
not ADHD at all.
But I want to come back to this thing about best laid plans, because I know, if you've been following Siria along on the socials, you'll know that she is doing therapy work, and a lot of that was adding structure. So here we are talking about best laid plans. How did that impact your therapy work?
So the first part of me going back to therapy was really going back to the basics. That's really what we're exploring right now is, hey, you know what? Like I've been in therapy. I've done a lot of work on, my past traumas, all of those things. But, with all of the changes that happened and very quickly over the last year, it felt like I love freedom and I love autonomy, but it was almost like too much to the point that I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. I would feel guilt. And so it was like, okay, so I went back to therapy because I felt like I was in a funk, is what I called it on the podcast. And I think that that's the right way, because I don't know that it was depression. I've had depression before and I've been on medication for that. So I'm not on medication, but it was like, let's just go back to basics. So the first thing was, let's just go back to things that let's go back to some structure. So adding the structure in was very helpful. And I gave myself 3 pillars to hit every day. If something legal, something podcast, something creative or open, is kind of what, and if I did those things, that was a good day. If I didn't do those things, then what I learned was I'm super hard on myself and like super self-critical. And so that was the beginning part of it. And then as I've gone back, now we're working on the feeling things. And I feel my feelings, but I don't like feel them throughout the day, if that makes sense. So like if I need to cry, I'll cry. Like I don't bottle it up. But I'm not noticing throughout the day how I'm feeling because I spend so much time in my head. So that's what I've been working on. And that part has been really interesting because as I'm explaining to her, like, I've got, all this motion practice, I've got all these things for this case that's going to trial. She's like, I'd be really curious to see what your body is doing. And I kid you not, like, my body's like tensed up at my desk. I'm like leaning forward. My tongue is like, at the top of my roof of my mouth, and just like things that I hadn't noticed about myself, because like my body does not like this practice anymore.
Oh no, I think we all know that. It's been made abundantly clear here.
Oh yeah, no, completely. But like, it's just how much is my body telling me that I'm not paying attention to. Like, I think I pay attention to it because I've learned, how important it is to pay attention to your body. But then it's like, you might learn it, but you're not actually applying it as well as you could be. So that's really what I've been working on, is this application piece.
So, but when we're talking about like best laid plans and stuff, so originally this was going to go to trial back in March, and now with like the motions and everything that was filed, it's like, no, we're doing this like next week. Because I think you and I were like, I think you were like, I can't even meet next week because I'm going to be flying to.
Oh yeah,
but I mean, like, how does that impact your structure?
I mean, it's just, you just kind of have to roll with it. It was like, all right, well, I'm going to have to go to Reno. I'm not flying in the same day because I know I can do same day travel, but like that shit's exhausting. And as, glamorous as it may seem, it's not. It's gross. So I was like, well, I'll fly in early to prepare with the client and just kind of see how things are going. And so, I flew in early, and then I flew back the next day because I knew it was going to impact. I mean, it impacted everything. It impacted my certification classes. I didn't go. Luckily, I didn't have any clients over those couple days, because it would have impacted that as well. But it was, I think it went from I'm not going up there, and then by Friday it was like, okay, I'm flying up to Reno on Monday. And so that just impacted how I was going to do things. And just, I want to say like things weren't up in the air, but it was just like, okay, I know that I need to do at least this much. But what it did was it gave me tunnel focused almost, because all I was focused on was that case. And so everything that I did that whole weekend, like, I spent a little bit of time with Matt, but not really. Like, I spent all of my time like on the computer doing things that needed to be filed, getting ready, printing things out. And then what happened was, when I flew back, I hadn't planned out anything else for the rest of my life. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, just because I hadn't even looked at it, but I was so focused on the one thing that I didn't even want to look at anything else. Like, I didn't look at emails. I didn't even want to turn on the laptop. Like, I was so revolted by the idea.
That's a good word.
I mean,
it's
like,
a strong word right there.
Because that's what it was. It was like, I don't want to have anything to do with the space of the house. Like, I don't want to do anything, because I had such intense focus to begin with. And like, even when I said that right now, like, I felt like a hit, like right in the middle of my chest and my heart, where it's like, yeah, that's exactly what it was. It's like, oh, and then just realizing, I don't want to have that intensity anymore. Like, I think, we are both anxious people. Just in case you guys haven't picked up on that one at all. And I'm over that. I'm completely over being at that high level of anxiousness anymore, because it robs me of so much of my life.
Well, in our episode, The Body Keeps the Score, I think I mentioned like I have IBS. And so when I get anxious, oh my gosh, I was nauseous. When I say for days, I'm not exaggerating. And it's like a constant, like a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst. I'm at a constant like 6 or 7 of nausea. And so, when you're not eating, it impacts your fatigue and your ability to focus. And it's hard because it's just like this nasty cycle that perpetuates itself. Mm-hmm. But fortunately, I've gotten a little bit better handle on that. I'm on some medication, anti-anxiety medication, that's helped minimize those instances. But, I know that I've talked a little bit about some of my learning experiences and growth experiences from this crazy thing in curveball. Curveball in life. What about you? What have you kind of taken away from this craziness?
I mean, I think the biggest thing that I've learned over, just this first part of the year has been, I'm super hard on myself. that's been a big learning lesson. The other thing, which I thought was really fascinating, is I'm currently in so Positive Intelligence, Shirzad Shamin, he has a coaching program, and he's got an app that their goal is to educate a bunch of coaches to have a bigger impact on the world with this positive intelligence. And so they do these things called PQ reps, which is to activate part of your brain that that's more of your rational mind, to get you more to your sage as opposed to your saboteurs. And like, my anxious Annie is what I'm calling her right now, is like, that they get into everything. Like I could feel the tightness. I could feel, just like, oh my gosh, my nails suffer tremendously, like when my anxiety takes over. And so as I've been in this practice, I'm in week 4 now of this. And part of it is just to bring you back to the present. So, it'll be rubbing your fingers together to the point that you can feel the ridges of your fingerprints. And you do that for like 10 seconds, or you wiggle your toes for 10 seconds, or you focus on sound. Like there's so many different ways to do it. And so bringing me back to the present, I think that's been my biggest learning lesson. And this has certainly helped. Like I've read the book a while back. I know it's, something that we've talked about on the podcast, and I didn't apply it. And I think that's the other thing. Like I know so much, and, I love that. And I'm being super humble right now. But it's the application of it. It's like you can know things, but what good is it if you don't actually apply it? And so even though I think I apply things, I'm not experience them as deeply as I could be. And so going back to like the basics with therapy, going back to feeling my actual feelings in the moment, I think those are the lessons that I'm learning. And really it all comes down to slowing down. If I can slow down, I can apply things, I can feel things, and I can feel as though I'm taking choices and actions with what I want to be doing and get to be doing, as opposed to what I have to be doing.
Interesting. This podcast has just served as such a healing medium for me, because even as like I'm listening to you talk, I was reminded that I took Friday off. Mm-hmm. And I just stated it very bluntly to my colleagues that I'm working on this project with, because I was like, I'm taking Friday off. And they're like, oh yeah, absolutely. Because they both know how much time and I've invested into this project. But it's like, why do I have to wait until I feel like I've proven myself, or I feel like I've done,
you've earned it.
I've earned it. Thank you. That's the word, that I've earned it. And it's like, I shouldn't have to wait until that point. I should always earn it. It's always been earned. It's always available to me, yet I don't take it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's earning it in the company and that kind of stuff. But just because you are here, you deserve rest. Mm-hmm. Because you are a human being, period. And, like, if you had Siria using capitalism in, 3 episodes in a row, go ahead and score that on your bingo card, because capitalism is part of why we feel that. We feel like we have to earn rest. And it's like, I took Wednesday off so the mediation was on Tuesday. I came back Wednesday morning, and I took my time. I didn't get like the first flight out, because it's like, why am I going to do that to myself? And then I took the rest of Wednesday off, and I was laughing my ass off, because it's like, I'm taking a Wednesday off in the middle of the week. I know that a prior version of myself would have absolutely died, because I'd had opportunities where people were like, hey, do you want to go do this thing? It's like on Wednesday, like my mom wanted to go to the Grand Canyon. And I think it was her birthday, and this was many years ago. And it was like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. I was like, Mom, it's a Tuesday or Wednesday. Like, ew, no, like have fun at the Grand Canyon without me. I still have yet to go to the Grand Canyon. I missed out on that opportunity. And now I can take a Wednesday off, and I'm fucking laughing about it. Like, I mean, just not that I'm going to do it on the regular, but like, why not? Like, part of it is this conditioning that, well, no, you work, and these are the working days, and these are the working hours. Like, I even have judgments about what time I should be showering. And like my therapist and I had to break that down. She's like, wait, you judge that? It's like, yeah, like if I'm getting in the shower, past 10 o'clock in the morning, like I'm like,
doing the lashes.
Yeah. Because it's, what did I do?
The day's like half gone at that point.
And that's all just self-judgment. And it's like, she's like, you realize you're judging what time you like shower. Like that's. That's ridiculous.
This whole thing about careers is just so fascinating to me. And like TikTok, the fucking algorithms are like spot on. So I shared this video with Siria, and I can't remember their name, their account handle out at the moment. Beautiful human being talking about how your career is basically, or how you interact with your career is basically an extension of your childhood trauma.
Oh yeah, I remember that video.
And that you're constantly trying to prove yourself to this boss that may not recognize all that you're putting in and sacrificing for the company, how you're making sure that you're taking care of their needs rather than your own. And, you know, I'm watching this video after working a 10 or 12 hour day again on this project. And I'm thinking, that is absolutely what I'm doing right now. Mm-hmm. I'm neglecting myself because I want to make sure that the client's taken care of, that my boss is taken care of, that I'm constantly proving myself to who? To who? And I'm like, oh shit. It really is an extension of the role that I played in my childhood.
Mm-hmm. That extension there, the idea that you have to earn your rest, that you know, I mean, there's, yeah, you have to be able to sustain yourself. You have to be able to do those kinds of things. But really, if your body needs rest, it needs rest. And, you know, it's not like a sign of weakness, like, oh my God, on my last project, I didn't rest for 3 months. And, you know, you're not competing with that. It's like, you know better. And I think that's the, you know, when you go back to your question about the lessons, like, I know better. I've learned a lot, and I really just need to take more time to apply these lessons, because I feel like I do okay with it, but just shedding a light on, oh, I could do better with this and be more here in this moment, as opposed to constantly in my head, because like I really do feel like I give myself headaches because I spend so much time in my head.
And I think that really is what I'm kind of taking from this episode when we're talking about the best laid plans. You might feel like you're running, you know, 10 to 12 hours a day, that it's hard, there's hardly any time for yourself. But coming back to what you're saying, it's like we know the tools that we need for self-care, and just regardless of what life throws your way, ensuring that even if it's just taking 5-10 minutes to just feel, to breathe, to step outside, I think is so important to our overall well-being.
I completely agree. And I think another big thing is the slowing down and the not multitasking part, because we feel like, oh my God, I've got so much to do. Let me do all the things at the same time, and that'll actually help. But it's like, you know, next time I'm gonna challenge you to, when you're sitting outside, to pause your audiobook for like 10 minutes and just sit in the sun and just soak that in for a bit, and then go back to your audiobook, because there is something about just feeling all of those things. And that's something that I'm also trying to practice more. Like just eating my food. Food is delicious.
Yes, it is. I'm also, I think the other takeaway that I'm going to walk away from this episode with is, I love the reframe. It's the choice. I'm making choices. It's not that I have to, it's because I'm choosing to. And I think stopping, kind of like what you're talking about, taking a minute just to, do I have to? I don't have to do anything. I'm choosing to. And I think that I need to choose to put myself first. That's it for this episode. Find us on Instagram at Pivotal Moments HQ for all the behind the scenes and sister-like banter you know and love. We want to thank our producer and music director, Ron Johnson. This has been an Astronomicus DMR and Pug Productions podcast.